Hello and welcome back to the Trick Play Podcast on the Fresh Take Network. I'm Simon Triskovsky here with Caleb Peterson, and shortly we'll be breaking down all the sports-related news, rumors, and drama that you will want to hear about. This week we have a pretty loaded week and pretty well spread out across the board for the most part. We'll be hitting on the Super Bowl, which just talking about how things went, talking about the halftime show as well, because apparently that's important to people. Then we get into the NFL coaching carousel, where we will be talking about all the coaches who moved around and all of that. We'll be talking about, I believe it's Greg's hit, or Greg getting hit by Morgan Riley after taking what was a rather controversial slap shot into an open net. Then we'll get into the NBA All-Star Game, which should be coming up the day this comes out, which is always fun. And we'll be giving you our picks if we were drafting the teams. Obviously not going to be the case, but still, we'll have some fun with it. Then, that'll be it, I believe. So, make sure to check us out on YouTube, Fresh Take Network, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, as we have new content coming out every single week on each and every one of those platforms. Caleb, how do you feel about the fact that Slovenia is apparently our second most watched country for our viewers?
Really?
How does that
What's
make
number
you
one?
feel?
What's number
well,
one?
take a guess. Take a guess what number one is.
Is it the U.S.?
Yeah, it's the U.S. I would have thought Canada, considering we are based out of Canada, but Canada is number 3.
There's more there's more
In the last 28 days. In the last 28 days.
Slovenia.
So in the last 28 days.
Okay, you want to know why? You want to know why that is?
I think I got a pretty good guess, but
Yeah. I wonder what video got popular about a certain basketball player who may or may not be from Slovenia.
Yeah, gosh,
that may or may not have something to do with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, I don't complain. Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah.
It's
we
pretty
love
cool.
Slovenia.
We love it.
We've always said we love Slovenia.
It's very true. We've always said that. So again,
Yeah.
thank you for tuning in. We've got a lot coming up this week.
Okay. If we reach 100 subscribers by the end of the month, by the end of March, we'll give them a little bit more time.
Okay.
If we reach 100 subscribers by the end of March, we will both fly out to Slovenia. And I'm making that promise for both of us, and you don't get to say anything. So if the Slovenian fans demand it, we will be there. Both of us.
Can we make the requirement that for that to happen, Slovenia has to remain one of, like, the 60...
Yeah.
The 60 subscribers need to be Slovenian. I believe it's Slovenian. I hope I'm right on that. But, like...
I wouldn't say all of them, but they need to remain one of our top countries.
Yeah, they need to remain in the top 2. They have to remain in the top 2 is what I will say. They will not beat out America, probably, anyway. They won't beat out America, but they need to remain in the top 2.
And so, yeah, if we reach that mark, then me and Simon are
I guess
getting
we're going
on
to Slovenia. How long is a
12
flight to
hour,
Slovenia? Is it 12?
12 hour, 55-minute flight. Oh, this is from Vancouver. It might be a little bit better from Calgary. They don't even fly out of Slovenia, so you'll have to come here first.
Oh my god. So I'm
so
literally spending my entire bank account on 100 subscribers? Like, fuck, Caleb,
Yes.
make it 1,000. At least, like... I ain't got that kind of money.
$1,324 dollars for a 13-hour flight. I don't know if that's runway or
Can I
not, so that
walk?
may be like... Not unless you learn how to swim real fast.
Alright. Shit.
We love Slovenia.
We love Slovenia.
So on this past Sunday, we had the biggest sport event of the year. Super Bowl 58 ended up with the Chiefs beating the Niners 25-22 in overtime. As a professional Niners hater, I absolutely love this game. I think it was one of the... We'll get into the details of the game, some of the plays. Most important plays, talk about the overtime, maybe some of the decisions that happened in it. But just to kind of start off the conversation, I want to know where this ranks in terms of like best Super Bowls that you've watched, Simon, because I think this, and maybe it's just because I hate the Niners so much and I was cheering for the Chiefs like they were basically my team at that point. But this is like top three Super Bowls I've ever seen, and I've been watching since the first one I watched was 47. This is the top.
Which one
this
was,
is in the top.
I
three,
suck
think.
with the numbers with the Super Bowl. Which one was 47? I can't remember it like that. Okay, yeah. I mean, I've been watching for less time because there was definitely I have been less into football for less of my life. But I can say, like, while I wasn't necessarily as high on it while watching it, a lot of things about it towards the end brought it up for me. I would say I don't disagree with the top three pick. I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if I could give you my best Super Bowl, honestly, off the top of my head. But I think, I don't know. I don't know where it would land for me, I guess. It's higher up. It's higher towards the top of the list. But I don't know if I'd comfortably put it number one, truthfully.
Okay.
It feels weird to have that there.
I mean, my number one is a very biased pick because it's the one that the Seahawks won. That will forever be my number one Super Bowl. That's probably most people's least favorite Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's probably true, actually. You know what? Actually, I can give you my favorite Super Bowl because it was the first Super Bowl I watched, which was Denver and Carolina. That would have been the first Super Bowl. Well, that was the first football game that I got really into watching.
Okay, yeah.
So like that, I'd say that one for me would probably be my favorite. I don't know. Like again, I don't know if I could even give you a second or third. Like just overall, while watching this game, I felt underwhelmed for the first three quarters, and that is 90% of the reason I don't feel like I could put it. It feels weird to have it near the top, but what happened, like, towards the end definitely, I guess, brings it up. But,
yeah, I think for me, I'm looking at this in terms of, like, it gave me everything I wanted. Because, yeah, for the first half, it was kind of trending poorly, because one of the worst Super Bowls in recent memory was Super Bowl 53, where it was, like, 13-3.
Yeah.
And going into the half, I was kind of thinking, I think I said out loud to my friends, like, oh, no, this is like the same thing that's happening again. That was not a good Super Bowl. I don't want that to happen again. But I think because it turned up a notch and the scoring opened up to that ending, that's why I start to be like, it gave me the defensive battle and the offensive shootout at the end of it. Like it really encapsulated everything, which is just like so fantastic. And I mean, I don't know if we want to get into like the specific plays of it more, but in terms of that ending, obviously a lot of the conversation is around the overtime rules.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been hearing that like Kyle Shanahan didn't know the overtime rules or didn't tell his teammates a lot of the players. I think it's either he didn't know or he didn't brief his team on it. A lot of the players on the team didn't know. I know Juszczyk definitely came out and said he didn't know that they changed the overtime rules. Either way, they weren't prepared. What do you think about the decision to take the ball first in this situation? Because normally that's a slam dunk in regular season overtime. But in the playoffs, it's a little bit different now.
I think, as a whole, the fact that this is the first time in the Super Bowl was the first time we've actually seen it in action sewered a lot of people. Because it's the biggest possible game. Obviously, any playoff game is big, but this is bigger than anything else. So I kind of, from a player perspective, I could kind of understand why they didn't know it. Because it's not like, I'm not going to sit here and act like going into overtime, I wasn't like, how does the new rules work again? Like, but even with, like, the fact that I was cloudy on it, because it's been a while since we've talked about the fact that they've changed it. It's been, like, what? They've changed it a year and a half ago? 2 years? Like, it's not...
2 years, because it was Bills Chiefs.
Right, yeah. Like, it's been a while since they've actually changed it. We haven't had to talk about it since, right? So I can say I was definitely not as... It wasn't fresh in my mind, but even then, when I heard them say that they wanted it first, I kind of scratched my head a little bit because it was I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense, and I think that's what most people are falling on. Because even me, as somebody who was a bit more casual on the rules, I was like, I don't know about that one. Because
Yeah.
it's the idea that you're giving Patrick Mahomes the final possession. Like,
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I got it from a sense. It was a thing that didn't really strike because I knew the rules going into it. I think that their decision looks a lot worse given that a lot of the players were clumsy on the rules. But I do think the reasoning makes sense. And as much as I would love to dunk on Kyle Shanahan and the Niners, I don't think I can as much here because I think the biggest kind of conversation that I've had after this is just like how, oh, this is such a stupid decision, such a stupid decision. There's like clips going around of, like Mahomes being shocked when they asked for the ball first because
Yeah.
he's like thought it would be a given that you'd want it second. And I get that because obviously getting the ball second gives you a couple distinct advantages. One, you know the score going into it, so you know what you have to get. If the Niners only kick a field goal, you know you have to get a touchdown, so you're going to be going for it. But I do think there's a couple things. I think that taking the ball first is not the worst decision because it kind of brings you to a point where, let's say Niners go down and score a touchdown. If the Chiefs go down and score a touchdown, then all the Niners need is a field goal.
Yeah.
And with kind of how the game was going, where they were just kind of scoring touchdown, 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 I think that's probably what they have in mind. I'm shocked that the Niners didn't go for it on their fourth down. If I'm being
That
quite
surprised
honest,
me too.
I think
Yeah.
I think that kind of sours the whole decision because I think if you're taking the ball first, you have to score a touchdown. I think you have to be aggressive there. But I mean, the other thing is that people were saying Mahomes has come out and said that like the Chiefs would have gone for 2 to win it, even if they did get the ball second, and then even if the Niners had scored a touchdown, they would have tried to go for the win. I do think there's a lot of it. It is important, I think, to get that final sudden death possession. I think that's what Shanahan was going for. I can see the logic that maybe wasn't the smartest decision, but I don't know. Like I don't think it deserves to be as lambasted as it was. Like that's kind of my take on it. It still probably was the wrong decision, but I think there is some logic to it.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what people are saying. There's logic to, if they wouldn't be asking the coach if there wasn't logic to it, right? Like it's that type of thing. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of them not going for it on fourth that also just struck me like it's almost like you're not sticking with your guns at that point, right? Because you're making the choice. Made the choice that you wanted to try and score a touchdown. First drive, you wanted it. And then you're deciding to turn back on that, and instead of trusting your defense, trusting both your offense and your defense in that situation, you decided to play it safe and you lost because of it, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I disagree with that fourth. I think not going for it on fourth was a terrible decision by Shanahan, and arguably could have, if more than the choice at the toss, probably would have been was the reason they lost. I will say that this entire thing, sitting next to my dad, who is has been a very casual 49ers fan since like the 90s, like watching this entire thing was pretty hilarious because like I said, I kind of scratched my head at it, and I remember saying to him like, why would you want to give Patrick Mahomes the ball second? Like, of all the people you want following up your offensive drive, like why would you do that? And he went, no, 49ers are going to go down the field, score a touchdown, no issue. And then on fourth down, he went, no, it's a good decision. Don't go for it. And of course, Patrick Mahomes marches down the field and wins the entire thing because he's fucking Patrick Mahomes. But, like, I don't know. I think the entire experience for me in that fourth quarter and OT was, I enjoyed it. I think that made up for the entire game that I just spent eating queso, having a good time. But like I don't know. It made up for it for me. I think you said that you don't, I don't know if you said this on the podcast or before, but I remember you saying that you don't think that this game needed OT to be a good football game.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think OT really, really added to it. Everything that happened into it. Because I think a lot of the reasons that this game will be remembered is for all of the shit that went down in that overtime.
Well, I do think that adds to it, but I don't think it needed that to be a great game. I think it was already a great game before that, because again, it gave me everything I need, even just in the first four quarters in terms of defensive showdown, and then the offensive floodgates kind of opened. Like that's all I really want from a football game. And I think about it this way: if the game doesn't go to overtime and it plays out pretty much exactly the same way, all you have is that it's 22-19, and instead of the Chiefs going down and kicking a field goal, they're scoring a game-winning touchdown with like no time left in the fourth quarter. That would still be a fantastic way to end a Super Bowl, and that's kind of what I wanted to happen. I was still on the edge of my seat that whole time. If it didn't have like this, I think I did say this before the podcast. If it didn't like have the fourth quarter that it did, I think everything after the point where the punt goes off of the Niners player's foot, I think that's kind of when the game shifted, if I'm being quite honest, which, I mean, that's just tough luck for them. But I think everything after that point is really what elevated it. I don't think it needed the overtime to get there. I don't know if we want to talk about how unlucky the Niners were in this game. That kind of got me thinking, like,
yeah, there was a lot of bad. Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
Oh my god.
I remember thinking as well before Dre Greenlaw went down, he was having a really good game. Like I felt like I was seeing him all over the place. I don't know how many tackles he had before he got hurt, but he definitely had at least 3 or 4. Which was it first quarter or second quarter he went down? I don't even remember now. But
it was either late first or early second.
Yeah, but he was on good pace for where the game was tackles wise, of just like disturbing the run game, right? Like I don't know. I could very much notice the fact that he wasn't there. So for the 49ers, and I mean, no shit, he's one of their best linebackers. Like you're obviously going to notice him when he's not there. But I think that really shifted the game, and I don't know how you feel about this, because truthfully, I'm not even sure if he was on Kelsey, but I almost wonder if that had anything to do with Kelsey stepping up a little bit more in the second half. The fact that they were down a linebacker. Like I think there's a lot of things in there that I think would have went differently had that injury.
Maybe I do think I don't know this off the top of my head, but I do think it was more of a Fred Warner.
And I thought that was the case too, but I still think not having that your second best linebacker, that still screws you for the.
Yeah, it definitely hurt them, but I don't think it impacted it quite as much as it could have, because I think where Dre Greenlaw helps a lot out in is run support, and at that point the Chiefs weren't really running the ball. I think you could tell that the Niners defense wasn't quite as good against the run, but at that point in the game, in
the beginning they couldn't run the ball at all. Like the Chiefs, they were completely getting stumped every single time.
Yeah,
Pacheco turned it around after the injury happened, but you got to wonder if that changed their
terrible game.
Yeah, like
I mean that was also partially Pacheco not knowing how to hand on to keep his hands on the ball. Because he fumbled it 2 or 3 times, with one of them really costing them.
Yeah, no, it was.
But he did turn it around. There are people at Super Bowl party I was watching that were calling for him, bench him, cut him from the roster in the first quarter, and then by the time. It's the fourth quarter.
I will not lie to you. I was saying to my dad, there's no point in running. What are you doing? You're not going to win this game by handing it off. use the quarterback you're paying $50 million a year and throw it deep.
Yeah.
That was what I was saying. The only way that the Chiefs were winning that game was by hitting Patrick Mahomes, letting Patrick Mahomes sling it. And I mean, it was kind of true. But, it
was kind of true.
It was still a bit of an overreaction to what was going on in the first quarter. I still think without that injury, who knows what would have happened. I think that injury really, really just shifted things, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't even know if it was as much, because, obviously they're going to miss him on the field, but I can't imagine what that does for, the locker room in terms of, the players' motivation. Because it's that's probably one of your most vocal leaders on the field. And to have him go out like that, where he's walking on the field.
Even in any situation I've been where a player has gotten hurt mid-game, you'd think that that type of thing, especially if it's a dirty hit that they go and that hypes you up. It doesn't. It air out of the tires almost a little bit, where you're just like,
Yeah.
it's, I don't know, it doesn't have the impact you might think, and I almost think that was the case for the 49ers, where it was the type of thing where, especially watching him go down like that, where it was like, that's nobody's fault. It was a non-contact injury. He wasn't even in play. He was running on the field.
The freakest injury like you can ever see.
God. I mean, you got to feel bad for him as well, because you got to think that he knew he was having a good game, too. Like, it's just like, yeah, that's always rough in situations like that, because, I mean, what are you going to do? But, I mean, hey, that's football.
Seriously. Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I mean, it could happen to anybody, but it sucks for that to happen in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to kind of wrap it up by talking about like where do these teams go from here? I think both conversations are pretty interesting.
I think they are,
because I think I could start.
Have you heard the shit people are talking about Purdy?
Oh no!
Like, it's been. I feel like I have heard things that are just insane to say about a quarterback who's, I mean, gone to the Super Bowl once and gone to the conference twice in 2 seasons. Like, it's...
Yeah.
I don't know what your opinion on... I think we've had the conversation about how good you think Purdy is, but I think it's... He's good enough that you should not be having the conversation of whether the 49ers need to upgrade, at the very least, in my opinion.
I honestly think that is a fair conversation to have. That's not meaning to say that they should. Because I think it would take a lot to upgrade from him. But I think it's more that if I'm looking at the Niners roster, I don't even know where else they can upgrade.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Well, the thing is, I don't think they lost this game because they were worse. Like, they were not the worst team in that Super Bowl. They just lost. Like, it's the type of thing where shit happens. I almost feel like for the 49ers, you just run it back. Like, I think that's all you can do.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think you have to. And you probably have, I do think you have to try to run it back as best as you can, circumvent the cap as much as you can to push your problems down the road, because I think you have one last year at this before your window closes. Because after this year is when Purdy comes due, and a whole bunch of other contracts come due as well. I believe
no longer
there's rumblings that Ayuk wants out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like, these contracts are going to come due. You're going to start losing star play. Like, Trent Williams is only getting older.
I don't imagine Kittle will be around, or at least around at elite level for a lot longer.
Oh, like, thank God. Good riddance.
Holy.
George, it's like Caleb Haight scale. Aaron Rodgers, George Kittle. It's like
really?
They're not that far apart.
Close?
Yeah.
But, like, okay, Aaron Rodgers, if we want to break this down, Aaron Rodgers, like, that's fair. Because I know where you land on, like, that politically, all of that stuff, but, like, that's fair. I don't know what George Kittle did to deserve being here.
Aaron Rodgers pisses me off because he's a stupid anti-vaxxer who runs his mouth. George Kittle pisses me off because I don't like his team and his hair is greasy and he's kind of a dick.
He seems like such a nice guy. I don't like every video I see of him is like, I want to be that guy's friend. Like,
I saw one video of him where he was doing an interview with like the 11-year-old reporter where he was at the Super Bowl media night, and I was like, I had to turn my eyes away because he was being really nice to him, and I was like, fuck. This is not the image I had in my head of this guy. Fuck. So I turned it off.
You need to.
He's a greasy little whiner, and I fucking hate his ass. I hope he retires.
So you hate him for all the reasons I hate Ryan Kessler, basically. That type of thing.
That is a great comparison. Aaron Rodgers is like genuine, like, I think this person is a shitty person, and George Kittle is the highest like level of sports hate, which is different than.
And I can get that.
There's a difference.
There's
a difference.
Yeah, I'll always hate Ryan Kessler for deciding that he can just take shits on pucks, but I mean, like,
exactly.
Does that make me hate him personally? Kind of yes, but
yeah, it's a very similar kind of thing. It's a very similar kind of thing.
All right. Well, I think
I
think the last thing that we can touch on because I think if I don't talk about it, people in my life will be mad at me. Let's talk about the halftime show.
Okay. I liked when Usher took his shirt off.
I got multiple texts at the same time going, "Why is he stripping?" I thought it was pretty shit, but I don't know what you thought.
Really?
I was
You thought it
pretty
shit?
unimpressed. I mean,
Really?
It's not like I hide the fact that my musical tastes are very much opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to this stuff. But like, usually, like for Rihanna's, I thought it was pretty good. Like for like stuff like that. Like usually, I can appreciate a good pop artist. This one is like, I don't know. It was like there was like 4 or 5 songs there where I was like, these suck. And then there's the last one was good. Like his last few songs were good, but like it was.
Yeah, he ended it well.
He ended it well, but he started it really bad. At least in my opinion.
My opinion of it.
Once he took his shirt off, it got better. Obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of the Adam Levine effect, where it's like Adam Levine took his shirt off and everybody wanted to plunge their eyes out. Usher takes his shirt off and it's like, yeah, you go, buddy. But no, I disagree. I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was like one of the best of all time or anything. Like nowhere near that. But I think my expectations were so low that I was like, oh, well, this isn't bad. Because
I guess that's fair.
I think Usher was running an uphill battle because the NFL picked him like 20 years later than he should have.
That's
like
true.
Nobody has talked about Usher for the last 20 years. If Usher did the Super Bowl in like 2006, oh boy, that would have been cool as hell.
Like 2006, 2009-ish era, that it would have been nuts.
That would have been great. He would have been fantastic then. But nobody like remembers any of the.
I also
anymore.
like didn't know any of the people he brought on stage, which is also again totally. I will admit, complete hick. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
You didn't know Alicia Keys?
No, I don't know who that is. I could not name a single Alicia Keys song. So.
Really? Okay.
Like name one.
Name an Alicia Keys song. She's in the.
Okay, never mind. I don't feel bad anymore.
She does Empire State of Mind with Jay-Z.
Oh, that one. Okay. yeah. Okay. I do know that one.
She's in that one.
Although I will say I found it fucking hilarious. I thought that they were like dating or some shit when I like saw the.
No.
And then he got married later that day. And then he got married.
Both of them are married to different people.
Well, no, he got married that same night after doing that. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I thought that was wild, but I mean, yeah. Interesting Super Bowl halftime show. I don't know. Like, the end was very solid. I did like it more than, like, it was watchable, which I guess I can give it that. Like, while I felt like the weekend one made me want to, like, I actively wanted to leave the room during the weekends, but, like...
Really?
Yeah, that one... Like, he was running through the maze, like, with an iPhone or some shit. Like, what the hell was that?
I mean, this is me being biased because I am a huge Weeknd fan, but that's my favorite halftime show that I've ever seen. Like, that... I mean, it's just because I like and know all the music. Like... I listened to after that Super Bowl halftime drop, he dropped like a compilation Weeknd Greatest Hits album that I had on repeat for like 2 months after the Super Bowl.
I'm blanking on names here. Fucking what was the one in 2020 again? It was like Shakira, like J-Lo. That one was good.
Yeah, Beyonce.
Oh, and the Eminem one. I put both of those far above.
Oh, the Eminem one.
That one was real good.
I might put the Weeknd one is just because I really like the Weeknd.
Sure.
The hip hop ensemble they had in LA with Dr. Dre. I'm not
a hip hop guy in the slightest. I thought that was fucking awesome.
That was a cool show. That was actually I'd probably put that above the Weeknd. I do think also the Weeknd had a lot to go against because he was doing it in COVID and couldn't work off the crowd at all.
That's fair,
I think he did. he did like a really good job considering
What
what
that, like, running through the mirrors, like, that'll
cool
forever.
set piece.
It
I thought that was a
wasn't.
cool set
It
piece.
really,
was.
really wasn't. It looked so
least it was-
dumb.
At least it was something unique. At least it was something unique.
Was
Rather than just like bringing
unique,
a bunch of dancers
unique
on the
doesn't
field.
mean
like,
good. Like,
I think it's cool.
It
I
looked
think
like
a
I
lot
was
of people will
watching
be on
a
my side
Zoom
for this
thing.
one.
It looked like I was watching a Zoom thing of like, imagine if like
For
one of your
2020,
friends
that's
got
so
like
fitting.
really drunk and like called you from like a club or something. That's what I picture. When I
It was
watch-
cool.
It was like spinning
It
in
was cool.
circles. There's lights everywhere. I thought that was
it was
so
great because
whack.
he took advantage. He took advantage of the fact that like there was no crowd, so he could do stuff like that, where he just kind of like goes to a back room with the camera. That I thought it was creative and I thought it was unique.
I guess.
Yeah, it was a great halftime show. He played all the hits.
I've just never
It
been a
was
fan
fantastic.
of The Weeknd. I actively don't
His
like
music
it's,
is fantastic.
His music gets
Music is
overplayed on
fantastic.
every pop radio station I've ever been forced to listen
Okay,
to.
yeah, because that's cool. That's just because you listen to like only the hits. Like you only hear "Blinding Lights."
Yeah. Pretty much.
I mean, everybody can get tired. "Blinding Lights" was still one of the better like pop songs to come out in the last few years. It's just that it got overplayed to oblivion.
It was.
But the rest of the
that song sucks.
it's a great song. It's a great song.
Oh, that song sucks so much.
You've just heard it too many times.
I've heard it so many
That's the-
fucking times.
It's a great song. If it comes up on my like Apple Music shuffle, I'm still listening to the whole thing and grooving the whole time.
I think I'd probably pull my earbuds out and step on them. Like, I don't like that song.
This weekend hatred doesn't sit.
I don't like like I can put up. The funny thing is I'm trying to think right now if there's actually like an artist that I dislike more, like music wise.
And the Weekend.
Like I'm thinking about it.
Weekend is great. How many Weekend songs have you actually heard other than Blinding Lights?
just the ones on the radio. So like list like all of like the three that have been overplayed.
Blinding Lights, Can't Feel My Face.
Yeah.
And
That
are those the three?
pretty much. Like, and I do not
Blinding
feel
Lights
the
and-
need to
Blinding
go
Lights
and
and
find more.
Blinding Lights and Can't Feel My Face, I get. The Hills is great.
Well,
still
I don't
like
even
all
know
three
what
of
the
them,
hills.
but-
I know there was like 3 or 4 that. Okay, I have no fucking idea what that is. But like, the two,
You probably know what
those
they're
two make me so angry whenever they come on the radio.
they're still great. They're still great songs,
and they
but
still
they have
get
been
overplayed. Yeah.
They have been overplayed. But I mean, the rest of the Weeknd's catalog is great. To any of you Fresh Take listeners out there, listen to the Weeknd. Listen to his new stuff. Listen to his old stuff.
I don't think
It's
the
all
weekend needs our shout outs.
great. The Weeknd does need a shout out.
Yeah.
Underrated. Saw him in concert in LA. It was fantastic.
I'm seriously trying to think if there's an artist I don't dislike more. Like I'm really like raking through my brain to try and like find something, and I actually don't know if I can.
What about like MGK? Like, there's got to be someone like.
I don't hear enough MGK. Like
Okay, yeah, I guess.
like-
What about Drake?
Oh no, Drake. Yeah, probably Drake. I hate Drake more. That's true. Weekend can take my
That's
second
fair.
slot.
Okay.
Yeah, Drake pisses me off for all the same reasons as The Weeknd. So I mean, it's like
But the
overplayed. Sounds
Except
like
the Weeknd
crap.
is actually. Except the Weeknd is actually good at music. That's the difference.
They both get played the
Drake's-
same, and I get equally as angry when I hear both of them. So take with that as you will.
I'm going to listen to so much of the Weeknd after this podcast.
Yeah,
I feel like I just need to cleanse my soul after this conversation.
All right, sure, buddy. I'll go.
That's gonna be my shout out at the end of the podcast too. If only I could pull out. If only I had my Weeknd vinyls here, I could pull out.
Oh my god. So, if you remember back a couple of weeks, we had Josh Arbuthnot on to talk with us about the coaching carousel and everything going around the NFL. Now we're going to go back a little bit here and take a peek at what ended up being the outcomes of all that. We obviously broke all of the potential moves down. Now we're getting the chance to actually look at what might happen, or what did happen, sorry. So, definitely a lot of interesting stuff here is the main thing that I immediately am looking at here. We're going to be starting off with probably one of the less interesting ones, funnily enough, but the Washington Commanders. They fired Ron Rivera and hired Dan Quinn. What an upgrade.
I think you say this is one of the least interesting. That may be true. I also think it is the funniest head coaching hire.
Probably.
Because with how this went is basically because the Seahawks and Commanders were the two that were left, and the last two teams to choose a head coach, and it was kind of going like this, where Ben Johnson and Mike Macdonald, who are arguably like the two highest touted coaching candidates, they were still both available. So people are thinking, well, one of them is going to go to Washington, one of them is going to go to Seattle, and then I think then Ben Johnson in Washington, they have their meetings, and I don't know, something goes wrong. There's been complaints both ways. The Commanders say that Ben Johnson didn't do very good in the interview. Ben Johnson said that he didn't like the Commanders' ownership. So Ben Johnson said, nah, fuck it, I'm not even going to take a head coaching job. I'd rather stay in Detroit. So now the Commanders only have Mike Macdonald as their last option, but he has already pretty much decided that he's going to Seattle. And I don't know the exact details, but I think the Commanders might have called up Mike Macdonald while he was on the plane to fly to Seattle to accept the job offer, being like, hey, buddy, like, you want to
go to a different Washington?
Yeah, and it's like, nope. Because I mean, the story that's out there was that Seattle offered him more money, which, thank God, we'll get to that.
I mean, 6 year.
But
yeah, that's pretty good.
This is a big thing. But I'm thinking, like, this is really funny because you can very clearly see that Washington had a plan. It completely went to shit, and they kind of said, "Oh, who's
Dan
left?
Quinn!
Oh, Dan Quinn! Oh, he's a guy who was good at some point." Forget about what happened in
Remember
the
that time when he lost the Super Bowl?
That. Yeah. Remember when the time when he coached the Legion of Boom, except that was actually Pete Carroll, and it didn't really matter. That's the kind of thing. It's like, I don't think here's the thing. I don't think he's like the worst hire in the world. Like, I think you could have.
You could have done a lot.
You could have had worse. But I do think this is kind of a thing. You could have also done a lot better. It feels like a move made out of desperation because there were no more good candidates left. And I think it does scare me a little bit that Ben Johnson was like, yeah, ownership is shit. Because with the last owner of the Commanders, we Commanders fans all know how that went in terms of Dan Schneider, and are probably getting flashbacks to that and are hoping it's not a similar situation. I would not be shocked. I mean, I hope Dan Quinn does well. He was like, I mean, he did lose the Super Bowl, but he did still make it to the Super Bowl with the Falcons, which you can say was Kyle Shanahan's doing mostly, but he still did make it to a Super Bowl. And so, like, he has some success. His defense, while it was up and down, had some success in Dallas. I don't think it's the worst hire, but it does end up feeling pretty uninspired.
Yep, and I don't think I disagree with any of that. I wasn't a fan of it immediately when I saw it. I just went, why? Like, even when I was very vocal about the fact that I did not want Dan Quinn to come to Seattle when that was rumored, I was very much not a fan of that. I talked to a lot of Seahawks fans who did want Dan Quinn, and every time I just went, what out of all... You wanted to get rid of Pete Carroll to switch things up. Why would you bring in his former, I believe, defensive coordinator? Like, it's...
Yeah.
I don't know. That move never made sense to me. It felt like just a lateral, pretty much. Like, it's not an upgrade from Pete. It's just a new Pete and a worse Pete.
Yeah. Like, a worse Pete. Yeah, really.
Like, it's just...
It's Pete Carroll without any of the energy or anything that makes him special.
Yeah, it's Pete Carroll without any of the Pete Carroll. It's just like... it's just... I don't know. It never made sense to me. I'm very happy with the move that Seattle ended up making, which is a pretty good transition, because we can move into Seattle if we want to do that. because
We moved into Seattle.
we move into Seattle. They fired
The
longtime.
Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl. Mike McDonald era starts now. Watch out, the rest of the NFC West. We're coming for your asses. Oh man, this is the greatest coaching hire of all time. Sorry, I cut you off. I got a little excited.
Simon, remember to cut back here in a year when he gets fired after going 4-12. I mean, sorry, nothing.
He's
Don't
not
worry.
going. He's not going
4-13 or
This is,
whatever.
we're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl.
We're going to Disney World.
Yeah.
God. I actually like the hire. I'm making jokes, but I really like the hire. I think he was definitely the best possible candidate out of all of the people we could have gotten. Like, other than, I mean, Harbaugh was never coming here, but like, that was the only other one that I heard that I think I probably would have liked more. But even then, I'm really happy with this move. It feels like at this point you're just picking at shit. Like, I thought. After what I saw out of the Ravens, I was really impressed by Mike McDaniel, Mike McDonald. I liked him more than hiring Johnson, which is another reason I'm very happy with this move. I think, and the thing is, I think that's why he ended up here. I think at the end of the day, it was the Seahawks who got to choose between Johnson and McDonald, is at least what it sounded like to me, and I think they made the right choice here. I think not that I think Johnson's a bad coach at all, but I mean, there's an obvious choice.
And I think that when I'm looking at this, I think a couple things. I think number one, obviously, I love this hire. It's pretty much who I wanted from day one. I mean, maybe if you go back and look at the video, I might have said Ben Johnson there too. But I do think a defensive coach is what this team needed. An offensive coach may have been what I wanted because I like offense and I like to see us score lots of points. Which we'll still get, by the way. I'll get to that. But I do think a defensive coach is what this team needed because this defense was the problem. And it's also the reason Pete Carroll got fired. Is because the defense was absolutely terrible for most of the time here. And I'm so after the Legion of Boom. Yeah. And so I think like bringing in Mike McDonald, who's had success everywhere he's gone. And it's not like the Ravens had a lot of talent, but so do the Seahawks. I think that's a little bit of an underrated story. It's just how much defensive talent the Seahawks do have.
That's true.
They just haven't been playing up to their full potential. They have 2 Pro Bowl corners who are in their now second and third year of playing. Woolen obviously had a down year, but with a coach like McDonald, I think he can bounce back. And Witherspoon should have been the defensive rookie of the year. And I mean, you've got, I think with Nwosu back, I think the defensive line is what needs the most work. But I think if Jamal Adams is ever going to have a comeback season, it's going to be now. I'm a little bit more doubtful on that end, but if he's ever going to have one, it's going to be now. Hopefully you bring back Brooks, and then I've been also really excited about the potential of adding some former Ravens to this team. If you can bring Leonard Williams back and maybe get Matabike in there too, that would be fantastic. I've heard rumblings of bringing Patrick Queen in maybe, because he's also a free agent.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Pairing up Jordan Brooks and Patrick Queen would be really funny, considering they went with back-to-back picks in the draft. Either way, obviously we're not going to be able to get
funny, but it would also be a pretty fucking insane linebacking core.
It would. Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Patrick Queen.
That's true. I wasn't even thinking of Wagner, but I guess, for some reason,
love that.
Yeah, no, I guess I wasn't even thinking of that, but yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this defense is super underrated. I think next season, everything goes well, Witherspoon totally has the potential to fill into those shoes of being one of the best corners in the NFL, I think. I think he's got all the talent in the world to do it. Woolen is
he's
an
already
athletic
up there.
freak. He is just it's just, for him, it's just coming into his own on the other side of the field from Witherspoon. I'm definitely a lot more confident in Witherspoon, but that doesn't mean that I think that Woolen doesn't have all the tools. It's just about putting them together. And I think with a coach like this, absolutely he can do it. And I think he also has the potential to be one of the better corners, I think. You have the athleticism
he was one of the best
that guy
corners
has.
in the league in his rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. With that athleticism, the funny thing is it's the argument where it's it doesn't matter how far you run away from him, he'll catch up.
I'd love to see him start doing more stuff like he did in his rookie year, where he was baiting people.
Yeah.
He would bait people with the speed, and that was what was cool. Was like the pick six he had against the Lions that year
Picking off
was
Tom
where
Brady.
he baited Jared Goff so hard. That was also funny. But like where when Goff threw that ball, the receiver was open, but Woolen is fast enough to make that decision wrong after he made it. Which is like, at that point, how can you even defend that? And I think the pairing up of like a prime Witherspoon and a prime Woolen, like I don't even know what you do against that.
No.
And it's really disappointing we didn't quite get to see that this year. I think our run defense was bad enough to where we didn't force people to rely on a passing game, so we couldn't really see the talents of Witherspoon and Woolen because their defensive line wasn't quite the best. But I think what were the Ravens really good at? They were great at stopping the run.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for
so
Seattle that has to be the one
McDonald's already
thing.
talked about that too.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that has to be the one thing
Yeah.
you immediately are going to try and do. You have to bring in people who are going to shut down that run, and like you said, if you can force them in the air here, I mean, even just like think corners, think safeties, think everybody pretty much. Like, there's not a lot of holes through the air in this defense for the Seahawks. Like, it's just when they try and run, and it's just when you face an elite running back, that's when the Seattle defense looks bad. It looks just terrible.
Najee Harris, week 17 or 18 or whatever that was, that ended our season.
Yeah.
That's kind of what is in my head right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's why.
And
That's
he's
why
not
I
even
like
that elite.
Madubuike.
He's good, but he's not elite.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I like Madubuike almost more than Queen if we're bringing in a free agent. I think pairing him with bringing
I
back
get
Leonard
that.
Williams, which they absolutely should do.
Yeah.
If they don't do that, that's kind of insane. I think they will, because I think otherwise, why would you trade for him? But I think that kind of pairing would be insane if they're able to make it work with the cap. I know their cap is really tight. Maybe cutting guys like Will Dissly. That's why some people say Jamal Adams might not be back, just to bring in other guys who are potentially better. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point. I think Mike McDonald's a great hire. I think a lot of the issues with their defense were schematic, and he has more talent than people think. Before I move on to the next coach, I do want to give a shout out to Ryan Grubb. Oh my God, I'm so excited. After watching the University of Washington's offense for pretty much all of this year, again, like I've talked about on the pod before, I got really into them this year. It was so creative and like focused on vertical downfield passing, which is like something Geno Smith is actually so freaking good at. And we didn't see it enough last year. And now hopefully we can unleash that.
Well,
and
I
the
mean,
potential of like,
with the Seattle team
Maybe-
has a ridiculous amount of deep threats. Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
think back to when like it was the let Russ cook thing. Why do you think it was so successful? Because we were throwing to Lockett and Metcalf deep every single time.
Yeah.
And they forcing them to make some incredible catches. Like, I'm sure you can just pick shit out of your head. Like, it's just like, I feel like I agree with you. I think this Seattle team would be stupid to not continue to go back to the well on that one, where it's just let Geno cook. Like,
yeah.
let him throw it deep a little bit.
And I do think Geno, well, Geno obviously isn't as good as Russ was in those days.
No,
I also think
of
he
course.
doesn't have the
And
same
that's-
flaw in terms of
That's not the argument
playing
I'm trying to
hero
make,
ball. I
but-
don't think Geno's going to be doing that part of it, which was kind of the ultimate undoing, where Russ would try to force things that weren't there, because that's never what you saw in the Washington offense. It was just like Penix had Odunze, who was just better than everybody else, and Penix was so accurate that it didn't really matter what the defense did, because Odunze was going to catch it and Penix was going to put it in the breadbasket. And I could see the same thing with Geno and Lockett, because we've seen it before in Geno's first season. Go watch the Lockett catch against the Saints. That is the most accurate throw I have ever seen from a quarterback in any football game ever. From his first year, go watch that. If you are doubting Geno Smith's downfield ability, he's absolutely fantastic at it. I'm frankly shocked that we were able to get Ryan Grubb as OC when it was said that we were interviewing Chip Kelly. I was fucking terrified, but we got probably the best person on the market. Also, our defensive coordinator, I don't know much about him, but he's British, and that's fun. And it's Mike McDonald's defense anyways. But so, absolutely great fucking coaching cycle for the Seahawks.
Could just be like a reverse Ted Lasso situation. You never know.
Yeah, I know.
No. Like, yeah, I can definitely. I had a thought and then I completely lost it, to be honest with you. I wish I could remember it because it was a good point. So, like, Simon, remember that later. Or don't. Whatever. We can move on. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Moving on from Arthur Smith, who decided to use none of his very many weapons and had no success, and to the shock of many people, obviously. And they are bringing in Raheem Morris, who, truthfully, I don't know too much about. And Caleb, I might just let you take this one because I'm sure you know more about him than I do.
I mean, honestly, I don't know the most about him. I mean, the thing that I think is funny is that it's kind of the Falcons admitting their mistake in hiring Arthur Smith, because do you want to know who the interim coach for the Falcons was before they hired Arthur Smith? Raheem Morris.
Wait, really?
He's been the head coach of the Falcons before.
I actually didn't know that.
And I guess I guess if you're Arthur, and he did pretty good. Like he had a good record with them. And I think if you're Arthur Blank, you're probably like, you were probably in your head thinking in those last few Arthur Smith days, like, fuck, I should have just went with the guy who was already here. And that's almost what this move says to me. And I don't think it's a bad move. Like I think it's a pretty good decision, because I think Morris is a great coach. One of the things that I hear about him the most is that the players just love him. Like he is beloved by the players in that locker room. People in LA were really sad to see him go. And I think another thing is he brought a bunch of assistants from the LA coaching staff, which obviously if you're on the Sean McVay tree, you're basically like gold in the NFL coaching world. So their new OC, Zach Robinson, is from the Rams coaching staff, learned under McVay. I think that's another big thing. And I think part of the reason Morris got the job is because they almost presented as a package deal. Not to say that Raheem Morris didn't deserve it on his own merits, because of course he did. But I do think that's a big part of it, because it's like, bringing over that kind of talent to run your offense, like that is a great package deal. And I think that obviously sweetened it a little bit. I think the one thing that maybe because I know you say you don't know too much about Morris, but I know you can definitely talk about this, is I think the biggest competitor for Morris for this job was Bill Belichick. What do you think in terms of him not getting the job and potentially less experienced guy like Morris getting it over him?
I mean, in merit, I don't hate it, actually, because I mean, you're bringing in a fresh pair of eyes, you're passing on the greatest coach of all time, which, I mean, looks bad. There's not really a better way to say it. I don't know if I hate it though, because I've always believed that coaches do have an expiration date, and part of me wonders, part of me has a hard time believing that it's Bill Belichick's, but is it that hard to believe that maybe the last couple seasons at the Patriots wasn't entirely just because he had literally nothing to work with? I don't know. I think that they made the right choice, because I think with Bill Belichick, as crazy as it is to say, you're almost flipping a coin with whether he's still the same coach that was. Is he still the greatest coach of all time in a weird way? It's a weird way to say it, but you kind of get what I mean. Are you getting that Patriots dynasty Bill Belichick coaching your team, or are you getting the Bill Belichick that had multiple losing seasons towards the end of the tenure? And I think Atlanta decided that they were not getting that Bill Belichick that we've seen in the past.
Yeah. And I think almost you have to look at the culture fit too. It's it's a young team. Is Bill Belichick's message of do your job, super strict, is that going to resonate well with those guys? I'm not saying that it couldn't work, but I don't know. That fit always felt weird to me. And I think I talked about it on the podcast in terms of this is also very much a team that has issues with the offense. And bringing in a defensive guy like Belichick, that felt weird to me. And the other thing that was another big red flag with Belichick is he was going to bring in all his Patriots buddies who have all been proven to be terrible coaches. It was going to be Josh McDaniels as the OC, Matt Patricia as the DC, and what's his name, Joe Judge as the special teams coordinator, which is just absolute hellfire.
I was going to say, that is a lot of names of people that I would not hire.
Yes.
To do much.
And I mean, they did good. They were good under Belichick, but I mean, that might have been a one-off thing.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else they've been absolutely terrible.
Do you know if Belichick would have... I'm guessing Belichick wouldn't have gone anywhere near GM, right? In this situation, I think that...
Well, that was another thing that people were concerned about.
Yeah. I just don't know if that anything
wasn't going to want to work
up...
for a GM.
Yeah. I was gonna ask it if
So
like if that Jesus, ugh, if that ever ended
yeah,
up
no,
becoming part of the conversation.
so I mean, a lot of people were speculating that it did, but Arthur Blank actually came out recently and said that Bill Belichick said he was okay working with
Oh,
Terry
okay,
Fontenot, their current GM. So
okay,
apparently that was not part of it. How much truth that has, I don't know. We weren't in the room, but Arthur Blank has come out and said that it wasn't part of the deal. So,
yeah,
I mean, if we want to take his word on it, then I guess it wasn't.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, again, like I don't know. I don't hate it. I like I said, I think especially with a younger team, going with somebody out of the McVay tree seems like a pretty good decision. It has gone well for a lot of other people in the past. Why not try it yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, I don't have any issues with it. I think we can move on though. I think we've pretty much hit on everything there is to talk about there. I think the next one that I've got on my list, Carolina Panthers firing their former coach. I have here as Frank Reich, but I know they had somebody else as interim.
That's some other interim guy.
I don't
Who
remember the
cares?
name of the interim guy. Dave
Or
Canales,
Port
I believe.
Fedor.
It's Canales, right? Yeah?
Yep.
Yep, okay. They hired Dave Canales, former offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yada, yada, yada.
This is
What do you think on
sneakily
this
my
one?
like. This is sneakily like. I mean, my number one is obviously Mike McDonald in terms
Sure.
of this coaching cycle, and the other one is Harbaugh, who we'll get to because he's just proven himself everywhere he's been. This is my third favorite hire. This is a fantastic hire, and frankly, hats off to David Tepper, which I didn't think I'd ever say, because I thought he had dug himself a grave that was going to be too big to ever crawl out of. When you fire coaches like this and you have such a happy trigger finger in terms of just like executing these guys,
Yeah. Well, that was the
after they've
conversation we had.
played what 12 games? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, what coach in their right mind would want to come to Carolina? And somehow they got like the best possible option because Dave Canales, if you look at his resume, what has Dave Canales done in the past 2 or 3 years? Resurrected the careers of quarterbacks who previously didn't play well. Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. Wow, now you pair him with your potential like teetering on a bust first overall pick. That's a fantastic pairing.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic pairing. We've seen him work wonders with quarterbacks like this. And seeing this pairing with Bryce Young, like that's all you need to do to sell me on it. That's all you need to do to sell me on it. He has had so much success in the past couple of years, and I think he's going to be great for Bryce Young's development. I think the only big question, I mean, obviously new head coach, like he's had such a rapid ascension that you'd like hope that he can handle the extra responsibilities, which I'm sure would be fine. But the only thing that I would be concerned about is still like making sure you actually give Canales time, because this Panthers roster is such a wreck that if you do the same thing you did with Frank Reich and like if Dave Canales goes 2-10 in his first 12 games, I don't even think that's that bad of a thing.
No.
Because as long as you're seeing like some sort of progression from Bryce Young, that's not that bad of a thing because this roster is so bad and it doesn't have its first round pick.
Do they not? Oh, they don't. I didn't even think of that. Fuck. Okay. Well, that changes what I was gonna say, because I was gonna say I think if you're this Carolina Panthers team at this point, you've made a move. You've brought in an offensive coach to help out your quarterback, like you said, who has. There's been questions about him in the past. You gotta give him a receiver. You just gotta give him somebody. Like, I don't know if you can convince somebody elite to come here. I don't know what the wide receiver free agency class looks like this year. You gotta get something.
Mike Evans.
Mike Evans? I mean, coming to play for his offensive coordinator again.
His division rival. Yeah. That's T. Higgins, maybe.
I kind of like that Mike Evans pair up. I just think you need someone. You need to bring in somebody who can actually be that fuck it, he's out there somewhere target for Bryce Young. I think having that elite receiver is so big for quarterbacks who are just struggling. I think giving him a weapon like that.
Safety blanket.
Yeah, exactly. A safety blanket. That's an excellent way to put it. Like, you just need like when you're trying to figure out the confidence of it, it's so important to have that option that you can always go to. I mean, you can just go down the list of quarterbacks that were helped develop by the targets that, or by the just things around them, really, like the coaching, their weapons. I think they've got the coaching, arguably, like you say. Dave Canales, excellent offensive coordinator, offensive coach. He could potentially help Bryce Young out. Now it's just about personnel around him, I think.
Yeah, and I think the Bryce Young trade continues to haunt them even in Bryce Young's own development, because you talk about getting a receiver. Wow, isn't this one of the better receiver drafts in the last few years?
Very
Probably
true.
since the Jamar Chase or was it Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson? No, it was Judy and Justin Jefferson. That draft was pretty good. Since then, that was 2020.
Oh, I guess they were a year
believe.
separated, right?
They were a year separated. And I don't think there was. I'm gonna get flamed if I don't remember what happened after Jamar
for
Chase.
some reason, well, because they were both LSU, so yeah, it would probably make.
They were
sense
both
for them
LSU,
to
but
be a year apart.
Jamar came out. Yeah, Jamar was a year after.
Yeah. That
Not
sounds
that-
right.
Oh, Waddle was the other guy in that draft. I mean, that was
yeah.
pretty good too. But I mean, anyway, it's a great receiver draft, one of the better ones since those last couple of years. In terms of, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., you've got Rome Odunze, you've got what's the guy's name? Neighbors from LSU, and if you had your first overall pick, you definitely could have orchestrated a trade down, pick up a receiver, and still have lots of ammo. But instead, they don't.
Yeah, if they had done that, I mean, you could probably move down to 3 or 4 and get Harrison. I feel like that would be a very good move for Carolina, because Harrison does have the talent to go in that top 3. It's just the fact that the top 3 are going to be QBs. I think that's that's been decided, right? So I think this is a really shit year to not have your pick if you're the Carolina Panthers. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's the biggest issue with the Bryce Young deal. It's not even that Bryce Young hasn't played well; it's how much he gave up.
I mean, and looking back on it, you got to think with the 3 quarterbacks available here, you got to think of some people in that Carolina building are going God, if we just waited a year, we could have gotten a rookie quarterback who I'm not sure where you would rank them compared to Bryce Young as a prospect going into the draft, but.
Probably all of them better.
Yeah, you think
all
so? I mean, college better than I would do, but I think you got to think that that's a conversation in that building. Just why the fuck did we do that? It's just I don't know. It's crazy to me. I think we should keep moving. We've still got plenty to go through here.
Oh yeah,
Next up on my list,
we can rip through some of these last ones. So.
Well, I think this one's probably one of the ones we'll want to hit on a little bit. Chargers is the next one I've got here. I do not know who their interim head coach was off the top of my head, but Brandon Staley fired December 15th.
Yeah.
New head coach is Jim Harbaugh, coach of the, Michigan Wolverines. Good at football. Caleb, thoughts? I know so much about college football.
I was scratching my head to find out who was the Chargers interim coach. Pretty sure it was Giff Smith. Just wanted to get that little factoid out of my head.
Who?
Giff Smith.
Giff?
Giff. Giff Smith.
Okay.
Anyways, that's not important.
I feel like I should have heard that.
I'm pretty sure it was Giff Smith. But I was just
he looks like his name.
Anyways. Yeah, he does. Anyways, Jim Harbaugh, probably I mean, I'm a biased Seahawks fan, so I think Mike McDonald's better. I do think it's probably arguable which hire is better, but obviously Jim Harbaugh is the more proven hire. He's won everywhere he's went. I don't think the Niners should have hired him or fired him. I'm thankful that they did, because at least then I got a few years of Niners misery before they were good again. But
I mean, they went from one bad coach to one good coach, to another really good coach, pretty much.
Yeah, at least they had the years where it was Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly. At least I got a couple years to laugh at the Niners before they got Shanahan. But obviously, you're looking at this. They built that Niners team up from not nothing, but at that point, Alex Smith was a bust. Nobody knew who Colin Kaepernick was, and he brought them to the Super Bowl and on the doorstep
he made
of the Super
one
Bowl
of
a
the
couple extra
better
times.
defenses we saw in the 2010s.
Yeah,
Or am I way off?
It's tough to compare them because that defense also happened at the same time as the LOB, so
I guess.
they weren't even like one of the better defenses of the years they were around, but they were still a good defense. I mean, Patrick Willis, like, lots of great players over there. But, I mean, the big thing is just like I do think he is one of the better in terms of like personality guys, leaders of a team. There's a reason that like he and Pete Carroll beef so much is because they're almost very similar in a way in terms of the kind of energy they bring to a locker room, and I think that's really important. And I mean, you've seen how well Jim Harbaugh has mentored quarterbacks. That's the other thing, is that he turned Alex Smith from a bust into a player that was actually like from serviceable to very good for the rest of his career. People forget how bad Alex Smith was in the first couple of years of his career. He was considered one of like the worst draft picks of all time before he turned his career around with Jim Harbaugh.
Taken ahead of A-Rod. That doesn't help your case.
Yeah. Actually, although Alex Smith's better. But
sure, buddy.
even then, like Colin Kaepernick brought him up from pretty much nothing, a late round draft pick, nobody knew who he was, and turned him into one of the better quarterbacks of the 2010s who should not have been dropped out of the league. And then you've got in Michigan, like mentoring JJ McCarthy, who has been fantastic and is predicted to be a first round pick. Yeah, it's just like I don't even know if I can say that much more about this hire because it's just like great all around.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna poke holes in, right? Like they went from a bad coach who almost everybody who followed the Chargers or around the NFL wanted them to fire. Like I know a couple Chargers fans, and they were from day one, start of the season, get rid of Staley. That has been the conversation for a while now. They did it, and they brought in. I mean, yeah, again, you're saying it's arguable, but like the probably biggest name coach that you could have gotten named Belichick. Like,
and I think he's a better hire than Belichick.
Oh, and again, I'm saying better hire. I'm said big name.
Bigger name. Yeah.
But like Jim Harbaugh is the best choice you could have made, I think, for this Chargers team. Because you don't want a defensive coach, I think, in this situation. You want a guy who's going to let Herbert sling it and help him out there. I think you're getting that out of Harbaugh. I think he's, like you said, he's helped quarterbacks in the past. We already know how elite Herbert can be in the right situation with the right weapons. I think Harbaugh is going to set him up for success with that a lot better than Staley did. So I'm excited for it. I think it's a really, really good move.
I'm glad he's not in our conference.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely the upside to that. We can move on, though. Next one I've got is Tennessee Titans. Moving on from Mike Vrabel to Brian Callahan. I'm interested on what you have to say on this one because, yeah, obviously I don't know too much about Callahan. Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator, which Bengals have had a very good offense at points, so I can understand that higher out of the merit there, but I'm curious what you think on it just based on the fact that they got rid of, a pretty successful coach in Vrabel. For their team.
Yeah, when Josh was on, he was really ripping on the Vrabel firing, and I think that almost changed my perspective a little bit because it's not like I even liked it before, but I like hearing him talk about it. I was like, oh yeah, like this is even worse than I thought. Now that I think on it, and even now it's even worse. I don't know if this is just a side tangent but I heard that a lot of people didn't hire Mike Vrabel because he was, quote, a big guy, and people were intimidated by him. I think that's really funny. But
it wasn't like I feel like I heard Vrabel. I heard very little Vrabel rumors. Like I thought I heard like something about Seattle at some point, but like that was the only one I heard. Like
he was never in serious consideration.
I would have taken Vrabel over like Dan Quinn.
No. Oh, over Dan Quinn, yeah, but not over Dan Quinn, yeah, but not. I'm perfectly happy with what we have.
No. That's not. No. That's not what I was saying. But over Dan Quinn, absolutely. I would take.
Oh yeah. Over Dan Quinn, yes. But no, like I look at Brian Callahan, I'm kind of like, what is this decision?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I mean, it's always, and I can't really say anything. It's one of those things where you kind of just have to wait and see. But he wasn't really ever a major figure in that Cincinnati offense. Because, I mean, Zach Taylor calls the plays. He's not the play caller. His dad is a fantastic offensive line coach who he got to move to Tennessee with him. So that's a plus. They got the best offensive line coach in the league with that, so that's nice. But like, I don't know what else he's bringing to the table, because I don't know how much of it was Zach Taylor, and I don't know how much of it was Brian Callahan.
That's a good point. I didn't know he wasn't calling the plays, but that is an excellent point, I think, to add on to that, because I think I almost makes me wonder a little bit of like, I mean, I don't know. I personally, I don't hate it just based on, if you just look at like the success he's had with the Bengals, you can see kind of where they're coming from. Like, because when Joe Burrow has been healthy, this has been one of the better offenses in the NFL. So while I would make the argument that there was another offensive coordinator who maybe, I have a funny feeling, probably just didn't want to go to the Titans. But I don't know. It feels, I agree with you. It's a little odd. I think I don't know. It does. I guess I see where you're coming from. If he wasn't even the one calling the plays, like, goddamn.
Yeah, it's just such a crapshoot. Like, this is probably I can't even say that much in it because it's just such a crapshoot and we don't know. Because like, things like this can go either way when we don't really know what they're going to be. Because the counterpoint against everything that I'm saying here is Mike McDaniel on the Dolphins. He did not call plays on the Niners. He was the Niners OC. And, of course, Shanahan's going to be calling the plays for the Niners. And McDaniel is proven to be a fantastic hire and is one of the better coaches in the league, at least scheming-wise. Like, he's been fantastic. And who's to say that Callahan can't be the same thing? We don't really know anything about this guy. That's kind of the big thing where I'm like, yeah, who knows? He doesn't seem to have quite the same personality that a guy like McDaniel does, so I don't think he's got that going against him. Like, I don't even think I've ever heard the man speak. It's not like he's making headlines with anything he's saying.
Well, I can say I as somebody who is a more casual football fan, I had never heard his name before. Like, that's the truth.
I'd heard his name, but I was pretty shocked that he got a head coaching job. It feels like one of those. I could be very much wrong because, again, it's a crapshoot and we don't know. But this feels like one of those hires where he lasts 2 years and then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't the right move, and then you move on. You know what it feels like? It feels like Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I mean, the Tennessee Titans are in such a weird spot as well, which is kind of the weird thing for me, where it's like they have a few talented players. And they have players who are on the back end of certain things. Like, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Derrick Henry isn't coming back. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, do you start the rebuild? What do you do?
He feels like a bit of a tank general. You know, like he's a coach that's kind of disposable so that you can kind of start tanking. And then once you're starting to be on the up and up, you fire him and then you replace him. Like, it feels like a Texans David Culley, Lovie Smith situation where those guys lead your tank, and then you bring in your actual coach, D'Amico Ryans. Like, it feels like that kind of thing where I'm like, oh, like that's what I thought the Panthers were going to do, but I guess it's the Titans who were doing it. I don't know. I mean, the one other thing I want to say about Callahan before we move on is like, I think that part of the thinking is that I heard the Titans really liked what they saw from Will Levis, and I think they wanted to bring in someone to develop him, and obviously Callahan working really closely with Joe Burrow, they liked that combination. But one thing I would say to that is I don't know how much development Joe Burrow needed.
Yeah.
He was already pretty fucking good.
Yeah, he was pretty much. He was there right off the jump, I guess. Yeah, I think the next one, this one I think we can hit on pretty quick because if I remember correctly, I think we already knew about this one when we recorded that segment with Josh, but I'm not sure.
Well, we didn't know whether they were going to actually do it.
I guess.
But it was very much.
It was
very likely at that point.
Yeah, but Las Vegas Raiders, they obviously fired Josh McDaniels on November 1st, and that was a hilarious crapshoot of incredible proportions. And then they brought in Antonio Pierce on January 19th, who is now going to, or I guess kept, however you want to put it. I mean, Josh's reaction to this entire thing, I think, should speak wonders to what that entire team thinks about a guy like Antonio Pierce. I mean, he's exactly what they needed. There was no reason to go. Like, I know Harbaugh. Like, I don't know if was that ever really in. Was it?
Well, I mean, it was, but I mean, it was pretty clear he was going to the Chargers from the jump. But he was in talks, I believe.
Yeah, like even then, I think I like this move, like just as a whole over Harbaugh for the Raiders. Like, I think Antonio. Why I don't know why you would get rid of Pierce in this situation. Like, the whole team when the whole team likes playing under him, I don't know. I don't know what.
Max Crosby was literally saying that he was going to leave if they brought in anybody else other than Antonio. Like, I don't know. I think it's a great move, and I think Mark Davis finally did the right thing after not hiring Rich Bisaccia a couple of years ago. He's learning when you have an interim coach who does amazing, you keep him. I think it'll work. I think it'll work great for them. He's been great. He's the only one who we've actually seen in this job before, and we know he did a good job, especially considering where they were before he got hired. And I think players love playing for him. That's the most important thing. I think he should. I don't actually know what their defensive coordinator situation looks like. I know they had Cliff Kingsbury, and then he left for Washington. I don't really know what that's looking like for them right now. I might have to double check that. But I think it would be really important to surround him with good coordinators, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because he very much strikes me as more of a leader of men than anything else. But
I could get that.
Still, fantastic hire. Fantastic hire. I don't have too much to say on it because we did kind of.
I was gonna say I don't think we need to go through the whole break down everything here. I think we can move on pretty quickly. I think I can say if you do want our breakdown of that, you can go back and take a look at the segment we did earlier. It wasn't official yet, also, like Caleb said, but I think we had a pretty good idea of the direction they were going to go.
Also, Josh is a Raiders fan, so I think he speaks to it better than we can.
Yeah, and I think and he did do a good job speaking to it. I think from what I remember, but I think we can move on to another one that I don't know if I necessarily have an opinion on, so I think I'm going to immediately throw this one to you. But New England Patriots obviously agreed to part ways with Bill Belichick, shocking the world, kind of.
Well, at this point, I called it before anybody else did, though. I called it before anybody else did. Watch our season preview episode. I called that shit. That's the best prediction I've ever made. Don't look at any of the other predictions I made in that episode.
Yeah,
but look at that one. That one was.
Speaking of predictions, certain Super Bowl predictions didn't necessarily go your way either, but you know how it is. New England Patriots, they hired Jared Mayo on January 12th to replace the greatest coach of all time, literally one day, apparently, after they fired Bill Belichick, according to what I'm reading here, which it didn't feel like it, but I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the most interesting thing. It's that the reason they hired him one day after Belichick is because it was written into Gerard Mayo's contract that if Belichick were ever to leave, that there was already a succession plan in place. They planned this out before they hired Belichick. In terms of he was their internal successor this whole time. Wow. Which I think speaks a lot to how much they trust him. Like that's a huge vote of confidence.
I was gonna say Mayo's been I'm reading he's been on the staff since 2019. Obviously a linebacker for the Patriots from 2008 to 2015. Been in the room a lot. Been in the building a lot. I mean, yeah. No, I don't. What position was he in before getting moved to head coach? Do you know?
Probably positional. I wouldn't be shocked if he was the linebackers coach.
Oh, you know what? That sounds right.
Yeah.
I thought I read that somewhere. Yes.
For me,
he was linebacker coach. That's right.
For me, I think what impressed me most was like his introductory press conference really kind of changed my view on what this hiring was, because I was a little bit scared that he would be a little bit of a continuation. Like going in building, you're always going to be scared. It's like more of the same with any organization. It's like you want to be hiring outside of the building so that you can actually have a change of perspective. It's the same kind of conversation we had with Dan Quinn and the Seahawks. Why would you hire a guy who's already been in that building and is very similar to the coach you just had? So I'm kind of thinking like Gerard Mayo is a player who's played his entire career under Belichick. He's a player who has coached his entire coaching career under Belichick, I believe. Maybe don't check me on that one, but obviously the last few years, if he's been there since 2019, he's coached under Belichick.
He's been there for a while.
He's been there for a while. So my point being, like, you'd be a little bit scared of that, but I was really happy to hear that he's very definitively coming out and saying, like, that way worked and it worked for a while, but we're doing things a different way now. And the ability to, like, take that initiative in your first press conference and say, like, give respect to Bill, but this is how we're doing things now, and it's going to be a different team. Like, that is fantastic, and I think that's what they need. And it seems like I can just tell, like, he's a well-respected guy. Robert Kraft seems to love him. And yeah, like, he just made a really good impression on me in every, like, interview clips that I've heard from him. I do think it's a tough gig with where the Patriots are at now, but I this isn't like a Brian Callahan thing where I think they're just kind of throwing someone in to lead the tank. I think it's very much like they have visions of him being there long term, and I hope they give him a legit shot, because he seems like he's shaping up to be a good coach. Although obviously we don't know what the season will hold, but I like the hire.
Yeah, and I don't think I disagree. I don't know why I disagree with this, frankly, because it's just a good move. Like, they're bringing in a guy. I think it's important, like you said, that he said that. I think because I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. Like, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting it to work, especially when it hasn't for the last little bit. I think obviously the culture worked when you have the great. I think having the greatest quarterback of all time in the room allows people to buy into that sort of system a lot easier. And I think maybe that was part of the reason that they had issues towards the end, where it was like, sure, you're asking this of me, but, like, if we're just going to go 5-10 or 5-9 or whatever, like, what am I getting out of this, right? Like, what am I getting out of giving you my best, giving you my all? Like, it's the type of thing where you need success for that type of system to work, and I just don't think with the way things were going, it wasn't, I don't know. It just wasn't going to it wasn't going to go that way. There's no point in trying, and it would have gone even worse without Belichick heading it. Like, So yeah, I think that is the bottom of the list. That is indeed the bottom of the list. So we managed to go through every single one in only 47 minutes.
Hey.
Wow.
Well, if you want to wrap up, I feel like we already have kind of tipped our hand. But Simon, what's your favorite and least favorite hire of the cycle?
Ooh. I mean, favorites, again, like, I mean, it's bias, because I like the Mike Macdonald a lot just because of the fact that it's not Dan Quinn. Like, that's pretty much 99% of the reason that I like it, because it's like, thank God. I mean, least favorite's easy, Dan Quinn. I don't think he should be a quarterback, or not a quarterback, Jesus Christ. I need caffeine. Like, I don't think he should be a head coach again, even if it is for Washington. Like, I don't know what he's done to get himself back here. Like, sure, the Cowboys' defense has been good at times, but I don't think it's been good enough. I think they were just better options. But, I mean, there are a lot of people who like it. There's a lot of people who like it. So, I mean, I understand that I might just be wrong on that one. I'm going to try and pick one that's not Seattle, because that is the immediate one that I really like. I mean, the other obvious one is Harbaugh. I like that a lot for the Chargers. I think it works really well for them. I think you're really going to just... Him and Herbert, I think, have the chance to mess up things, especially in that division. I think I like that team a lot now that they have an experienced coach like Harbaugh, who has been seen to really elevate quarterbacks in the past. I'm excited for what's next for Herbert. I'm really happy for him, too, because I think he's gotten the short end of the stick being on the Chargers for a while now, and I don't know. I like how things are going or the direction things are going.
Yeah. And I would probably, I mean, I hold no qualms against being a homer. If you listen to the podcast,
well, that's why I gave it to you. I knew that you'd do it. But...
Yeah. Mike Macdonald is my favorite hire, and I don't feel like that's even that far fetched. It's not even just the Seahawks.
No, I don't think it's far fetched.
Terrific move. My least favorite, I actually don't think it's Dan Quinn. I think Brian Callahan is probably my least favorite.
That
just
is the other
because,
one.
like,
It's Dan Quinn or Brian Callahan. At
yeah,
least in my opinion.
because I'm thinking like that's even more uninspired, and just looking at the gap from the coach you used to have to the coach you have now, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I guess
that's a good point. Yeah, like I guess I'm not looking at it like that. Ron Rivera, while he was good at one point, I just don't think he did much. I guess with the Commanders, like
he was he was just a dead man walking. Like,
yeah,
for most of the season, he kind of knew his time was up.
yeah, like it was. It's just like he. How long was he there at this point? Like, was he 4 years? He was there for a bit.
Yeah, I think 4 years.
I feel like I did when he got hired there. I did think he was a very good coach. I just think like he might have had a bit too long of a leash, all things considered. Although yeah, I mean,
it was just a tough situation. I don't think anybody could have succeeded there, but it was time to move on.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
All right. So the biggest story on the NHL the last week or so has been the Morgan Rielly hit. And if you guys don't know the context for this, look up a video. You can look up a video of it. There's actually a pretty good representation of it. Look up a video of it for the full thing. But Ottawa's winning. Toronto's pulled their goalie. Ridley Gregg goes down. He gets a breakaway on the empty net. And instead of just kind of like tapping it in like most people would, he decides to twist the knife a little bit. Goes for the full-on slapper right into the back of the net. And now, obviously, if you're the Maple Leafs, you kind of view that as a little bit unsportsmanlike, a little bit uncalled for. And Morgan Rielly decided to take things into his hands and just slash the poor guy's neck. Give a little cross-check to my old boy Ridley Gregg's neck.
Yeah.
And I believe the suspension ended up being 5 games. And now there's a lot of like I believe why the story is really interesting is just because of the debate it inspired. It's like Ottawa fans are going out and saying like under no circumstance can you come after a guy like that after the play and give such a dirty hit to the head. And then the Maple Leafs fans are coming and saying, well, the little fucker deserved it because he took a slap shot into the empty net, and you can't do that. I don't know where you stand on this side, but there's a very clear boundary line here.
I have a weird opinion on this. I think this is the opinion that most hockey players will end up having. Anybody like most like player, it's because the argument that I've heard like online is it's the difference between what the media is saying and what like former players are saying. That really like shows you what the difference is in between like the mentality of a hockey player versus somebody who's just watching. I think so when you do something like that, there was going to be consequences. I think that no matter what, if Greg didn't think he was going to get punched in the face, he's an idiot. I think that what Morgan Rielly did was a bit too much. I think you punch him in the face. I think if he punched him in the face, this would have been a much lesser conversation. Just drop the mitts. It's the fact that he got the stick involved that completely like turns this entire thing. He drops the mitts. This entire thing, it's nothing. This is like any other hockey play ever. Like this just happens. Like it's the hockey culture as like much as you want to call it that. Like if you do something like that, if you break an unwritten rule, you're gonna get hit. That's how it works. It's the story as old as time. It's just the fact, it's what he did to hit him that's really the controversial part to me, where it's like, you know, in his shoes, I wouldn't have done that. But I'm sitting here and going like, I would have let him get away scot-free. No, probably not. But I don't know. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if I have like a hard line stance on it either, because I can kind of see it from both sides, and obviously I don't have a former player perspective on it. I can just see it and think like, well, I don't necessarily like, I get it from both angles. I think Greg is an idiot for taking the slap shot into the net, and I think he kind of got what he deserved.
I kind of thought it was awesome.
I kind of okay. That when I say he's an idiot, I mean it kind of in the same way as you
Yeah.
do, where it's
Yeah,
like if
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
playing
yeah.
for the other team, he absolutely fucking got
Oh.
what he deserved.
Sure. Yeah. Like
But
that's the.
I do also kind of love it because it does inject that little bit of personality
Oh, yeah.
in the game. Like if I'm in the Sens, I love it.
I think
That's
is
the kind
the
of thing,
emphasis
it's
that's
like-
needed. Where it's like, I think it's fucking awesome. Did he deserve to get punched in the face? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? But like he didn't punch him in the face. I think I actually lost a lot of respect for Morgan Riley because I think you followed up somebody breaking an unwritten rule by breaking an unwritten rule and hitting him across the teeth with your stick. Like, it's just like it's I don't know. I didn't like that from Morgan Riley. I just like if you are going to take a stand on somebody doing something like that, you got to do it the right way. That is that is something I've always believed. Where it's like I don't agree with people who break another rule to make another rule right. I don't think that's how it should work. In a situation like that, you drop the mitts. Like that's what happens there. You start a scrum and then that's it. That ends it. You let Greg make up for it, right? Because that's the whole thing with fighting. If you're going to do something like that, you have to back it up. That is the rule in hockey. Yeah. You did not give Greg the opportunity to back it up in that situation. You also hit him from behind. Like it was just like I don't know. It was scummy.
Yeah.
Like I'd have to watch it again. Obviously, I don't remember. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but it was very clear he did not see it coming, and it was just like it's.
I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing is, I don't think Riley intended to. I think it was probably the worst possible hit that he could have done in that situation. Like, right? I don't think that was necessarily the intention. I think he's just flying in there thinking this fucker really just took a slap shot on an empty net and was just aiming to hit him.
And that part I respect.
Just aiming to hit him in any way. Like, just aiming to hit him in any way possible.
Yeah, it's the fact that he went high and used a stick that really just like you could have.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just grabbed him. You could have done, like, really anything, and you would have gone away scot-free here. Like, you could have hurt him worse. Like, that's the funny thing. It's the fact that the stick was involved at all that is really, really, like, just, like, setting people off in the wrong way. And respectively so. Because we're at a point in the sport where, like, again, I keep saying it, like, whenever situations like this come up, concussions. Like, of course you're going to get a big suspension for that. I don't know if he hit him in the neck or head. You were saying neck. It's been a minute since I've seen it. But, like, anything above the shoulders, you don't mess with that. Like, I've seen situations where players have had to, like, stay down because they took a hit to the neck. Like, anything like that's just scary, and you don't want that in a sport like this. Like, I love contact sports. Like, I think they're so fun. But and I love the unwritten rules in hockey, like on the ice. I think it's what makes hockey what it is compared to other sports. Like, sure, you hear about those unwritten rules, but it's not to the same level as they are in hockey, where, like, I think it's almost like a bit of honor to it. And I definitely will say, despite agreeing with the fact that I think Greg deserved to get whatever was coming for him after that, despite thinking it was pretty awesome. I love that. Like,
yeah.
And I can say, like, I am far from when I played, I was far from the biggest follower of the unwritten rules when it came to messing with people. But, like, I can say, like, I am a big believer in you have to back it up. And I just don't think I think in a situation, I feel like Greg probably would have backed it up. It's just he was never given the opportunity, right? And that's the underlining.
We'll never know.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like,
here's the thing. Do you think this is a question? I don't know when they play again, but I mean, obviously it's a rivalry, anyways.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be some sort of scrum or some sort of brawl to start that next game? I feel like there has to be.
I don't see Morgan Riley fighting him. I can see Greg wanting to fight him. But, like, I just, like, I don't know. It's not Riley's style. Like, it's just, no. I hope so. I think that's what should happen after all of this. I think there should absolutely be a pretty, pretty big, like, response to this entire thing in their next game. But, I mean, hey, we'll see, right? Like, you never know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could also see nothing coming from it. It depends how soon the game is.
Which I think that would be the most disappointing thing, is
Yeah.
nothing coming from it. Because,
Well,
I
because
mean,
this has been like
listening to.
it's been pretty crazy to see like the outlet. Like, 'cause there's some people who like think it's the best thing ever, and there's people who think that Greg deserved worse. Like, it is wild. Like the differences on which side. Like, there's no. Like the funny
Yeah.
thing. That's the funny thing where it's like we're both sort of in the middle. I would say like I'm more on the
Yeah.
former player side of it, like where it's like, well, I mean, I get what he was going for, but like it's I don't know. I'm very much on the side of like I don't know what Greg expected. It's that type of thing, right? Where like I do not agree with the fact that he deserved worse. I do not think that you should use your stick to hit someone like that after a situation like that. That you are making a situation worse when it doesn't make a lot of sense to. Like,
Yeah.
I
Do
don't
you-
know.
Do you think that? Here's the thing. I don't think they play again this season, actually, which is kind of disappointing.
Maybe in the playoffs. Or I guess Ottawa's not very close. But
Ottawa's not very, yeah.
yeah,
But
never mind.
I was gonna say, well, what was the question I was gonna ask? Do you think in terms of 5 games for the suspension, more, less? What do you think?
About right. Like I would have been definitely not more. I would have been okay with less. Like
That would be my thinking too. I think I'd say 5 was probably my upper limit, and I'd say
Yeah.
like anything from
if
3
he had
to
gotten
5.
3, if he had gotten 3, I would have looked at it as like, yeah, that's about right. He got 5, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like I think if he had gotten anything above that, I would have been like, again, I get it. He shouldn't have done that. Like that is a shitty way to go about it. I disagree with it, but that's a lot of games. Like it's
It
also
is.
the fact that like I don't know. I don't think Morgan Riley really has that many. Like I don't know if he's ever
He doesn't
been
have a
suspended before.
history.
Yeah, like I
It
feel
is-
like he has
was a
before.
weird player to have done this.
I feel like I've seen him do stuff like this before, but I don't know if he's ever actually like faced this much backlash for it. I'm gonna
He
keep
has no disciplinary history or
Okay.
fines.
yeah.
I
I don't know.
So
Again,
no history at all.
I will stand on my hill by saying that I think it's awesome. I love when players do stuff like this, especially in rivalry games. Like it's so fun. Like that's
Yeah.
if you're not allowed to shove it in your rival's face, then what's the point in having rivalry games? Like you wanna really like I fully agree with what he did. I just think that like you gotta know Greg
You do
knew what was coming, right? Like
Yeah, you do have to back up. But I do think it's an important point to make, is like the one you're making is a good one in terms of like, yeah, like this stuff should happen more in terms of like
Yeah.
taking that slap shot in the net.
and
Like
it's not that
it's a-
uncommon.
it's
Like people act like this is the
competitive
first time
sport.
we've seen something like this ever in hockey. What it's not. We
Yeah.
see this type of like you're saying it's bringing personality, and it's exactly that. But in rivalry games, it's not common, but it's not incredibly uncommon either. Like teams will
Yeah.
absolutely get in each other's faces towards the end of these games and really let them know about it, right? That's a very like common thing. I think that it's just the fact, it's the outcome of it, but that it's the Riley cross check that's getting people messed up about
Yeah.
it, because you're really because you start to walk the line of like what should be the punishment for like taking a slap shot like that, where like the far ends of it either are don't take that slap shot, don't do anything related to it. If you do that, you deserve it, or it's the other side of the thing where it's like, screw Riley, that was stupid, yada yada yada, right? Like it depends where you land on it, right? I think he deserved to get suspended. I think the action was wrong. Do I understand the merit of it? Yes. Like it's a rivalry game. Things got heated. I have a funny feeling Riley regrets it a lot now.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously because he's suspended. But
Yeah.
I do think it's a thing in terms of like making rivalry games fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the good comparisons for this in another sport is what the Saints did at the end of the season to the Falcons, where
Oh yeah.
they were up by 30 and they scored a touchdown. And it was interesting because Cam Jordan, defensive end for the Saints, was on a podcast that I listened to, the Around the NFL podcast, and they asked him about it and like, were you guys okay with that? And we were like, absolutely. Like the whole team, other than the coaching staff, was behind him. And they said, and Cam Jordan basically said like what the hell do we care? It's the Falcons. We hate those guys.
You're gonna hate them anyway.
If I was out there, if I was out there and I had the call, I would have gone for 2. It's like, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that kind of. That kind of thing, and it brings the fun back. Part of the fun of sports is hating other teams.
Yeah,
that's why.
Oh,
this last Super Bowl would not have been as fun if I didn't want to see. I enjoyed myself so much watching the Niners players cry on the sidelines as the Chiefs confetti fell. That's part of the fun. That's part of the fun. But you have to bring that back into sports more.
Yeah.
Bring back sports hate.
And it's still there, especially in hockey. It's just like it's the people who are like completely against him taking that shot that I don't. That's the side I get the least because I'm just. I don't know. I know I've played hockey. Like, I've been in this environment my entire life where it's just like... So I guess I can see it if you're less familiar with the style or, like, with how things usually go surrounding that. But it's like... I don't know. Like, I guess I don't know how much I even have more to add because I'm just saying the same shit at this point. But it's just, like... I mean... I have issue with what Morgan Riley did to get revenge. I don't have issue with him going after it.
Yeah.
I think that's the emphasis that needs to be made a lot because a lot of people are just I don't know. The reaction to it, this entire thing has been absolutely insane, at least in my opinion. It's a dirty hit. Dirty hits happen all the time. For our NBA segment this week, obviously we are pretty much, when this comes out, it should be day of the NBA All-Star Game, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So Sunday, right? Sunday? Yep. This should be coming out perfectly timed then, as both me and Caleb will be drafting our own sort of all-star teams to make this a little bit more interesting. Like we did for the NHL side of things, we will not be going into NBA 2K because that was going to be way too big of a pain in the ass to set up again. So we won't be doing that this time, but that's all right. We'll be able to live without it. But that'll mean that it'll be you guys having to decide who did better. Let us know and why Caleb's dumb and let me win. This is going to be terrific.
I mean, you're currently 0-1 in these.
That's true. You did beat me last time. This is my time. This is my chance to tie things up. I guess, kind of. Although that will not be a game.
I clearly know so much about basketball.
That's true. That's true.
Nobody could ever call us casuals.
Yeah, never once has anybody called us casuals when it comes to the NBA. I guess we have to decide who's drafting first. Who drafted first for the NHL? Was that you or me?
Great.
Oh, you got McDavid, so probably you.
I got McDavid. Yeah, okay. You want to go first for this one?
I go? Okay, sure. I mean, I'll go first. I'll happily. Well, I mean, there's a. I guess there's not an immediate first pick, but there's one person that sticks out right away to me, that I will immediately take, and that is your boy Nikola Jokic. I will immediately take.
That's what I figured.
Although I'm showing off how scuffed this is going to be.
Lorem Ipsum MVP.
You're not seeing this. This is... Shut up. Whoa. Throw like smoke on the screen. Make it all flashy. Wow. Holy smokes. Jokic's name just appeared there? How did he do that?
Not
my sixth center. I should put him point guard. You know what? I'll put him center. I'll put him point guard. Fair.
All right. Well, that's probably who I would have taken if I.
Yeah, it's kind of the obvious pick right off the jump.
It is, especially since we talked about this before the podcast, but I can't match you with Embiid at center because he's injured.
Yeah, we will not be taking anybody who is hurt.
So that kind of already feels like a bit of a mismatch in that kind of department. So I feel like I am starting off on a bad foot. I'm gonna kind of switch gears though. I'm gonna go with my small forward as I'm just gonna put Luca because I think like especially
That's
with
what I
how
was
he's been
hoping I'd
performing
go to.
recently.
Yeah, no, that is
Yeah,
very
no,
fair.
I'm not gonna give you Luca. I'm just gonna take him off the board right now.
I wanted my Europeans, but I guess I'm not gonna get them.
No, I don't. I wasn't gonna leave that for you. There's no chance in hell.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I still get the chance to match up my Europeans though, because I'm gonna take a different. I'm gonna take my other boy, and that is Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me either.
Yep. So right off the bat, we got our 4 and 5 figured out. Giannis and Jokic down in the paint.
That's a pretty
We like
crazy
it.
duo. That's not something I'm necessarily looking forward to having to go against. See, this is where it gets tough for me because I mean, it's really upsetting to me that Embiid is out because I think if I could get Embiid, those matchups would be pretty balanced because I feel like at this point you got to say those 4 are the best 4 in the league. And would I be crazy to say that?
No. No, I don't think you'd be crazy to say that. I think you'd get some arguments, but I don't think you'd be crazy to say it.
Yeah, I mean, with anything, I'm gonna get some arguments, but I feel like that's, man, I don't know what I want to. I don't know where I want to go with this next. I'm gonna go. Oh, this is tough. I'm gonna go. Shit.
It's tough.
I don't love my.
Well, once you get out the top 4, there's not a
option.
lot of mistakes you can make, I think, because there's a lot of players who are like on similar levels.
I'm gonna go Dame and put him at shooting guard.
Wow. That's a bit of a shocking pick. Or no, that's not what I was gonna do. Ignore this. Again, smoke on the screen. Smoke on the screen. Oh my gosh! Look out your window! Holy smokes! Did you see that? Did you see the distraction? Wow! Wow! Did you see it? Oh my gosh!
I don't know.
I do know how to spell Lillard.
I have a vision.
You have a vision?
I felt like there was other players that potentially could have wanted more, but I don't know if you're gonna grab them. I was a little bit more worried about you grabbing Dame, so I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is probably that's not the direction I thought you were gonna go, to be honest. No. I think I'm gonna just right off the bat take a Laker. And
you taking LeBron?
I'm taking LeBron. I feel like at this point he's the pretty easy. Or not easy, but he's always a safe pick. I don't know if I want him point guard or small forward, but I think for now I'll put him small forward.
All right. I'm okay with that. I feel like I'm at the point where I mean, I know you're a Lakers fan. I know you love LeBron.
Yeah, after all, my love of LeBron is well known.
Yeah, I figured I'd give him to you, and I don't know I know he's still great, but
he's still very
with how old he is. I kind of wanted to go a little bit younger with my team, and with that, I kind of like. I think I'm gonna hit my point guard next.
Okay.
And I think this one. Oh, do I want to do that though? Oh man, like these choices are getting tough. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with a Tyrese Halliburton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I like that pick. I like that.
And I just think that he's been ripping it up this year. Like in terms of like,
that right.
I don't know if I'm not gonna tip my hand as to who I was debating with between him and this other guy because obviously you still have a chance to take him. But that will probably be revealed later whenever he gets taken. So just know that it was between this guy and another guy, and I just feel like he's been like just with how well Indiana's been playing and how well he's been playing. I felt like it was in terms of an All-Star game roster for this season, I felt like it was a good pick. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but you see the shit where he like threw it off the backboard from the 3-point line, caught it again, and then dished it out to Siakam.
I didn't, but that
for
sounds
free.
awesome. All right, with that figured out, I think where I'm gonna go, I've been mulling. Because of some technical difficulties, I think that gave me a bit more time to, think up my decision a bit more. I think that I'm gonna go with who I think you were fighting in your head with Halliburton in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah.
I think that's the pretty obvious pick, at least to me. I like the idea. The nice thing that I like about him is depending on who I can get in the next little bit, he can kind of slide in at shooting guard or point guard. He's good at both. I think for now I'll slide him at point guard, but we'll see how things go.
That was absolutely who I was fighting against in my head.
Yeah.
I feel like Halliburton, I feel like Shai might be a better player overall, but I feel like Halliburton has had a better season. That's kind of where I'm like.
Yeah, and I don't know if I disagree with that. Although I will say they are close enough that I was very much kind of the opinion of I'll just take whichever one you don't.
Yeah.
I was happy. I was happy to take whoever there. But anyway, back over to your pick. You've got two bigs to fill in to try and fight Giannis and Jokic.
Oh God, this is where my lineup falls apart, I think. I
don't know why this was on my desk, but I've just been playing with this basketball pump thing. I don't know why I have this, but I've just I've been fiddling with it. I hope it has not been making noise.
Okay, I'm gonna go with. I think for my power forward, I thought at least that he was a little bit over the hill, but I think he's had a really strong season this year, and his team has been doing a lot better. And I mean, if he plays up to what he can be, then this will be a fantastic pick. But I'm gonna take a shot on Kawhi.
Kawhi, wow, okay.
Give me Kawhi.
Okay. I don't know if I see the vision, but I certainly see you. I see you making moves, and they're being made.
Okay, can I can I justify I don't know if you've seen the run the Clippers were on recently.
I guess.
But they were doing fantastic, and a lot of that was because Kawhi was playing.
I mean, you could not have chosen a better defensive player to guard Giannis, I guess.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking too, right? Is that that's kind of what my team is missing.
That's true. You have a lot of offense, not a lot of defense.
Out of everybody who's left, if I'm gonna get somebody who's great on the defensive side of the ball, I'm getting Kawhi. It's not like I'm probably not getting peak Kawhi, but he's been playing really well as of recently. So I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, and I can respect that as well. I think for my next pick, I'm going to be obvious pick is to fill that shooting guard role. I think it just depends on who I want in the spot. And that is where I'm a little bit on the fence here. You know what? I'll go the younger of the two. I'll go the younger of the two. I'm gonna take Jason Tatum here. Oh, I keep doing that.
Okay.
I think that obviously he's a type of guy who can slide in shooting guard, small forward, even power forward potentially if you really need him in that spot. I am gonna put him shooting guard because I'm just looking at the size of the rest of my lineup and going, yeah, that probably makes the most sense. And that means that Shea will be locked in at point guard for me, which I don't really have any issues with either.
Yeah. Oh boy, now I have to choose a center.
Yes, you do. Because
I'm wishing for him.
There is an obvious one, at least to me.
This is where my basketball knowledge
and that's fades. Julius Randle.
Yeah. I'm looking at I think I'll go with. I think this is what you're talking about. I think I'll go Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
It felt
There
like the more
are
obvious one.
good.
I was trying to. I was seeing if I could like go younger, hit like a Banchero from the Magic, but
Yeah.
this feels like it's a lot safer pick.
No, I don't think that's a close pick either. That's not even who I was thinking. Like, just skill for skill. I don't know how good of a season Benchero is having, but Adebayo, I guess. If you had said that, I would have been like, okay, you're adding defense. I kind of understand that. But, like, I think Cat is, like, head and shoulders at this point above the rest of the centers on this list. Not named
Yeah.
Embiid, obviously. But, obviously now we've got a chance to make our sixth. I think this is pretty obvious to me. I'm just going to take the guy I was kind of fighting in my head with over Tatum. I'm going to take Steph Curry.
Okay.
Whether or not I took him was going to determine whether or not Shea played point guard. Oh no. The whole world's on fire.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
God,
We're
this
back.
has been
We're back.
scuffed, huh? I'm going to take Curry as my sixth. I think that's probably best available type pick. I also think that out of all the position groups I have, guards are probably the weakest. Not to say anything, not that that's anything against Shea or Tatum. I just think that, yeah, I kind of like I like having Curry. I like having the fact that I think I could pretty much slide him in at shooting guard, point guard, next to either Shea or Tatum. I have no issue with that. I think that just shows the balance of the lineup, which is important.
Yeah. For my last pick, I'm just gonna say fuck it and go for who I think is the best player left in terms of at least like having a great season on a great team and is overall a great player and has been really is a young guy who's been continually improving. I'm gonna go Anthony Edwards from the Timberwolves on this one.
I think the surprising thing is that Durant somehow stayed on the board for this entire thing between the two of us. I thought at some point he'd get taken. I do like the Edwards.
I mean, I was going to. That was kind of gonna be. That was my initial instinct, but I feel like at this point in his career, Anthony Edwards gives me a little bit more.
That's fair, and that'll do it. Those are our picks. It is Shea, Tatum, LeBron, Giannis, and Jokic with Curry coming in off the bench for me. Halliburton, Lillard, Doncic, Kawhi Leonard, Kat, and Edwards for Caleb. I like my team here. I like my team a lot. My team's a lot older, but I like it.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know. If I could swap out Kat for Embiid, I feel like this is a lot more balanced.
Yeah, well, we can even here make it interesting. Go.
If Embiid was playing.
Like.
Yeah. I feel like that would almost balance it out a little bit more.
I think so.
But I mean,
so like
within the restraints of the exercise, because he's obviously not going to actually play in the All-Star game. I'm still okay with Kat, and I still think this team could match up. But the Giannis and Jokic is like.
I don't believe Kat would do a good job guarding Jokic, and I don't. Well, Leonard and Giannis is pretty decent, but like even then. Although then again, Doncic versus LeBron is a matchup I don't like either. So.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot here. I think it is actually fairly even. Like I think both teams match up pretty well. I think we both went in two very different directions with our teams, which is very evident. I think I went with the more veteran, you know what you're gonna get out of them, while you definitely went younger, more basically across the board. I think if I had taken Curry as my point guard, it would have fully solidified that veteran approach. But I think nonetheless, I definitely built the 2019 All-Star team. You have built the future, and now we get to see what who the people thinks win. That was a sentence. Oh.
Ritz crackers are so fucking good.
I'm gonna open it with that.
Do it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the Trick Play podcast this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. all the segments we had. If you did, make sure to check us out on Fresh Take Network. Boom, that corner.
No, fuck.
Got him.
No, wait. It's in your corner, so it's tougher.
Got him this time. Got
Got him.
Yeah, Fresh Take Network, that's going to be Apple Podcast, Spotify. Otherwise, check us out on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, all that good stuff. If there is a platform on the internet, we are probably on it. Just look up Trick Play Sports Podcast. That's going to be us.
It's always fun to argue with Caleb on Twitter. Keep that in mind.
Oh yeah.
That is the nice part about Twitter. Is now Caleb is getting in fist fights with every single person who disagrees with him. Get hyped for it.
If you want to see me get angry at you, come on Twitter.
Yeah, if you want Caleb to get mad at you, go to the Twitter.
Yeah. Speaking of things I'm not mad about, though, this is a special shout out edition of the Trick Play podcast. This is the book report.
This is the book report, apparently.
Well, where me and Simon are both going to shout out books that we've been reading, which
one more relevant than the other.
Yeah. But the book that I'm going to be shouting out is it's coming into frame there. Three Ring Circus by Jeff Pearlman. I don't know if you can see his name there. Jeff Pearlman is a fantastic author. I've read quite a few of his books. The one that I love the most is Football for a Buck, which is his book about the USFL, not the USFL that recently existed, but the one back in the 80s. And it's a fascinating story. I know I loved it. This is the one book where I gave to our friend Matthew, who normally doesn't read, and he was fucking going off about this book because it's just so fantastic. It's a very interesting story, and there's so many it's something you don't really know about as a sports fan. It's not like it's talked about all that much, so it's a lot of insights and a lot of crazy twists and turns that you don't expect from that kind of thing. Great book. I also read his Brett Favre book, which is another really good one. I also read he has one about the Cowboys dynasty of the 90s. That one is also great.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, that Boys Will Be Boys is what
that's
called.
what it was. Yeah.
Which has the most, and that one I still really liked. It has the most metal opening chapter of all time. If you even go into a bookstore and don't want to buy the whole thing, just read the first chapter and it's holy shit, that happened. Oh yeah, it did. I won't spoil it, but it's fantastic writing. Anyways, this is the one I'm shouting out now. I'm not that far through it because I started reading it a few days ago.
Yeah. So what is that for you? How many pages? Because I'm curious.
I'm at 150.
Okay, that should show the difference in how much me and you read then. Because I will say, despite the bookshelf that I have back here, a lot of these books I read when I was younger. Most of these, I would say I read before the age of 15, which would be 4 years ago at this point. I am not an avid reader by any means of the imagination. But, that being said, earlier this week I took both my sisters to the mall and they wanted to go to the bookstore. For whatever reason. Apparently Percy Jackson something or other, I don't know. Anyway, there's some Percy Jackson thing is happening, I guess. I think.
The new show. Yep.
Oh, well, there you go. There's something happening. One of my sisters wanted to go get a book there. Anyway, I found myself perusing through the sports section like I usually do at bookstores, and I came across this. For anybody who doesn't know, because I guess there's not a lot of reason for you to know, I am an avid fisherman when I can be. I'm not very good, but I enjoy fishing. It is called The Optimist by David Coggins. Not that one. David Coggins, not Goggins. And it is the fucking best book ever for no reason. It's just fucking great. It's this guy, because normally I will say fishing guides are fucking boring. I can understand why people would find them interesting, I guess. But personally, whenever I've wanted to get better at fly fishing for a long time now, and I suck at it. But I also hate reading fishing guides. So I just find myself basically just throwing shit at the wall and just trying to figure it out on my own, which is not a good way to go about it by any means. I just don't like fishing guides. So I picked this one up, and it's basically a fishing guide in a biography. So it's him explaining all of these stories of all his fishing stories, because he's fished all over the world, and while also giving tips and tricks for all that shit, like how, like specifically like how he ties his flies and all that shit. For me, it has been interesting as hell. I will say I've had it now since I went and got this on Monday. So we're recording this when, Friday? So 5 days. I'm 35 pages in. So like I have been picking it up for like 10 minutes. Like every once in a while and just taking like reading it. I've been going slow. But that being said, I have been fucking enjoying the crap out of it. And it's making me want to start picking up more books, which is always a good thing. I think that's the sign of a good book.
That's
and to show you how
is the
little I
sign of a good
read,
book, I was gonna say.
my bookmark has been a Mark Tenorti rookie card. So take that with that as you will. It says he had 10 points in 1989 with the North Stars. There's your sports fact of the day. There's your sports fact of the day. But yeah, there's my, if any fellow fishermen out there who are looking for a very good fishing book.
I was gonna say
recommend.
it's a very niche audience that you're
But the thing
that
is,
you're
like,
talking to, but I'm sure it very much hits with that niche audience.
I will say, even as somebody who fishes, like, reading about fishing is boring. Like, it just is. Like, there's not a lot, like, to... But he does it really, really well. Like, the way that he's, like, explaining everything, where it shows he has a lot of wisdom to pass on, but he also has a lot of humor to it. So I recommend it to anybody who's interested in either learning more about fishing or just wants to read a book that, like... It's making me excited for spring. Like, it's that kind of book, where I'm excited to be able to get back on the river. So, I don't know. I have been enjoying it. So there's the end to our very odd podcasts.
I do want to mention. I don't think I mentioned actually what this book is about. I do.
You know what? If you want to hold it up, this will be a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Thumbnail.
Book report.
Book report.
But yeah, no. Like I think I was just talking about other Jeff Pearlman books for a lot of that. But I do want to say, like, this one is about the 2000s Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, and kind of covers that whole era. Obviously, that's why it's called Three Ring Circus, because they won 3 rings.
And it was a circus.
But it was a circus, and I think as someone who is not the biggest basketball fan, and I don't know a lot of this stuff going into it, it's absolutely fascinating. It's not like any of the other football books where it's like I know what the Cowboys were. This is fascinating because a lot of the stories I didn't know.
I will say, I think the most interesting thing to me about that era of like Lakers basketball is how like. It's like a hatred that between Kobe and Shaq. It's a hatred that turned into a brotherhood. Like it's a hatred that followed them throughout their entire careers. Like they constantly wanted to one up each other, and it turned into a brotherhood once they both retired. And I think there is something so awesome about that. Like I've just like, it's because it's a hatred that comes from respect. Like both of them hated each other because they were good, because they were almost polar opposites. Like it's I don't know. I haven't read the book. I haven't read the book, but it makes me want to pick it up because I think if it's done well, I know a lot of those stories, and I'm sure like there's a lot of things to tell. I can definitely say that.
Yeah, I've gotten so much more insight into both who Kobe and Shaq like were as people that I did not know before, and it captures their dynamic pretty well because everything you just said, like. I'm only like a third of the way through, but that's still captured very well in terms of both their drive to be the best and to be the leader of that team.
They both wanted to be the best, but they both went about it in very different ways.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. It's super fascinating, and I'm at the point where Phil Jackson's just starting to come in, I believe. So I'm very interested to hear all the stories about that in terms of how they were able to actually, in terms of how they were actually able to kind of wrangle those personalities.
I was gonna say he is one of the more interesting coaches to learn about because when you hear about like who he's coached, with it being like Michael Jordan and Kobe and Shaq, you don't necessarily. I don't know what you expect out of his coaching style. I guess if you don't know anything about him going into it, but you will certainly be surprised if you do not know anything about him.
Yeah, I mean, I know what I know from The Last Dance.
Okay, never mind. You've got a basic idea then of the fact that he's a bit wacky, but that's what made him so good.
Yeah. but I'm still very interested to read about it because I know a lot more because of that. I know a lot more about his Bulls days than his Lakers days.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated, and I know like there's always just these little like tidbits of stories that are so interesting because they're just so small in scale, but so just like fascinating. And it's like the only time you would hear about this is in a book like this.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just so focused on one thing that those little stories really come to light.
Yeah, and that's a big reason I've wanted to get back. The reason I like stopped reading at least in my head, or I stopped reading as often, is mainly because I felt like I had read everything that I wanted to, I guess. Because I had a very like niche thing. Like I only wanted to read about athletes I was interested in, and I only wanted to read sports biographies and nothing else. So I just stopped. Like at a certain point, I had read everything related to the athletes I wanted to know about. Like, I mean, you can kind of get a pretty basic idea of like Wayne Gretzky, Kobe, Clint Mahavlik, or Mahavlicek. That's just an interesting story. Gordie Howe. I mean, after that, it kind of just goes all over the place. But there's most of them I started reading because I wanted to learn more about that specific player. And at a certain point, I'd walk through the aisle and just go like,
I've read that. I've read
that. It was either I've read that or I don't know. I didn't want to read about like.
I don't care about this.
Yeah, like, and so I just ended up stopping. But like, I think I'm learning that I have to pick up. I want to get back into it. So maybe I'll find something after in 10 years I get through this.
For me in sport, because I had a similar kind of thing with sports books. For me, the autobiographies, while interesting, I think they kind of pale in comparison to books like this, where it's like an investigative look at a specific period for a specific thing.
I want to pick up more
it's really interested. That stuff's really interesting to me, and it doesn't even just have to be like Jeff Pearlman. I think is the master of it, but there's been other books I read that I don't know the author of. There's one guy who like did an examination of college football in general. That was really fascinating when I didn't even know a lot about that. It's just like these like really in-depth reported stories that I find super fascinating. And while I still love the autobiography, like I've read Wayne Gretzky's stuff. I've read Steve Young's book was actually pretty good too. But
I'm trying to remember. One second. I'm gonna see if I actually have it. I don't know if I ever actually finished it, but this is a pretty good example of that. One second. Distracts. Is this what I think it is? Oh no, it's not. Never mind.
Okay.
I totally didn't just drop that book. Shut up. You didn't see that, hear that smoke bomb. But there was some sort of, I don't remember who wrote it or what it was even called, but there was like a book like that about the Flames and Oilers rivalry that I wanted to read, and I just never.
The Battle of Alberta.
Was it just called the Battle of Alberta?
I think it was just called the Battle of Alberta.
I don't remember.
I think I gave that book to my dad for Christmas.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That's one that was on my list forever, and I never got around to it. But I think that's one I'm probably going to be picking up. That's kind of on that level of where it's like it's breaking down something that's interesting like that. Another one I really want to read that's again it's Lakers related, different era. I want to learn more about the 80s for the Lakers because I know they made a show based off of it, but I'm not a big show guy. Like I think I'd actually rather read about that in a book. So I think I'm gonna have to at some point pick up some sort of book because I know a lot of the stories, but I want to know the full big picture with all that stuff because there's a lot of very interesting stuff.
You know what is that the show is based on another Jeff Pearlman book.
Is it really?
Yeah,
that would make sense.
It is. He's kind of the master at this.
Do you know what it's called?
He wrote a book. I think it's just called Showtime.
Oh,
Showtime, Magic
well, that's
Dream,
the name of the show.
Yeah. That's written in 2014. That's the one. So if you're looking for that, I haven't read that one, but it's considering how much I've read of this author, I can vouch for it.
You can vouch for it. Yeah.
Without even having read it, I just know his style and I know that it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Like, that one. It took me a second to pull up. But yeah, no, that is one that is also on my list, has been on my list for a while. I think I've got to hit that. I've got to hit, like... Oh, crap. We've got the name tags up now. I don't even understand how this stuff
People
works.
know.
Whoa!
Oh,
Name
yeah.
tag's gone. You will now forget who I am. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to our book report, apparently.
That was a good book report.
It was a good book report.
To make this a weekly segment
sweet
book report.
Baby Jesus. Fuck no. I'm gonna be on like page 60. Like, I'll be doing. You'll be on like like a different book, and I'll be like, yeah. So in this chapter. That's what it'll be like. It'll be Simon.
Oh yeah.
Report. It'll be me talking about this guy in a different river. that'll be it. Oh. Anyway, thanks for watching. Check us out everywhere. Like Caleb said earlier. We are everywhere. Go argue with him on Twitter. Check us out next week. Yeah.